Three Sky players coming over. At a top.
There's a scrape across the face. That's what Clark didn't like. And then Mabry came in with a bump.
WNBA star Caitlin Clark just dropped a bombshell, and suddenly the league isn't just talking about basketball anymore. Behind all the spotlight, a serious question is hanging in the air. Is the WNBA heading toward its first ever players' strike?
Escorting her back to the bench.
JC Sheldon is there with her hand in her face.
If you thought the biggest drama in the WNBA right now was rookie rivalries, packed arenas, or debates about who really runs the league on the court, then you might want to sit down. Because what's happening behind the scenes is far more serious and far more powerful than anything. For the first time in WNBA history, the players have voted to authorize a strike, and no matter how calm the league looks on the surface, this vote quietly shook the foundation of women's professional basketball. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions and starts tweeting that the season is about to disappear or that the league is imploding, let's slow the panic down just a little.
Told us before the game that in her last game she thought her first one was going in, and this one does, and watch the reaction. Her previous
games are still being played, schedules are still intact, and players are not walking off the court tomorrow. But the significance of this moment cannot be overstated, because authorizing a strike is not a casual decision, and it is definitely not something a league does when everything is fine. So what actually happened, and why now of all times, when the WNBA is arguably more popular and visible than it has ever been? Now hear me out. Recently, WNBA players participated in a formal union vote that asked one clear question: should the players' union be allowed to call a strike if negotiations with the league fail?
This does not mean that the WNBPA is striking. This does not mean that the players currently are striking. This just means that the players have approved if
nearly the entire league participated in that vote, and an overwhelming majority voted yes. This was not symbolic, and it was not done for attention. This vote gave the union real leverage, and more importantly, it showed that players across teams, contracts, and career stages are united on the same issue. And that issue is the collective bargaining agreement, also known as the CBA, which might sound boring until you realize it controls almost everything that matters in a professional athlete's life.
As we kind of navigate the WNBA CBA negotiations, what does this tell you about where we are?
The players are galvanized. Right.
But before we continue, let me clear that up for you. A CBA is the legally binding agreement between the league and the players that sets the rules for how the league operates. It determines how much players are paid, how revenue is shared, how long contracts last, what benefits players receive, how travel is handled, and even basic working conditions. If the league is a house, the CBA is the foundation, the plumbing, and the electricity all rolled into one document. The current WNBA CBA is approaching its expiration, and negotiations for the next one have become tense because the league is no longer the same league it was 5 or 10 years ago. Attendance is up, television viewership has exploded, merchandise is selling at record levels.
This time, I think it was accidental by Hartley, and then Reese just with a big reaction.
And players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Sabrina Ionescu have turned the WNBA into daily sports conversation instead of a seasonal afterthought. This growth is exactly why the players believe this moment matters so much. And here's the core of the disagreement. The WNBA is making more money, but players argue that the structure of how that money is shared has not caught up with reality. While the league has proposed higher salaries, players are focused on revenue sharing, which determines whether their compensation grows automatically as the league grows or stays limited to fixed increases that do not reflect long-term success.
For bigger salaries and, more importantly, revenue sharing. Why is this a critical point for them?
I mean, there's just so much growth going on right now in the WNBA, and,
In simple terms, players are saying that if the league makes more money because of their talent, visibility, and labor, then they should receive a meaningful share of that success. This is not a radical idea in professional sports, and it is already standard in leagues like the NBA and NFL. The debate is not about whether players deserve to be paid more, because both sides agree on that. The debate is about how the system is built and who benefits the most when the league continues to expand.
Reality is that revenue sharing in the last deal didn't really exactly reflect the growth that the WNBA has experienced in the past 5 years, but that was because no one could really expect the growth.
This is where humor creeps in, because from the outside, fans see all the fun, viral highlights, and sold-out jerseys, while players are still being told to be patient and grateful. At some point, patience turns into negotiation, and that is exactly where the WNBA is right now. Let's talk about the faces of this movement, because this is not coming from anonymous players hiding behind statements.
Back in 2020, and also in unprecedented times, we didn't anticipate what we would have to continue to bargain for after we had signed it, given the
Nneka Ogwumike, the president of the WNBA Players Association, has been the steady voice throughout this process. She has emphasized that authorizing a strike does not mean players want to stop playing basketball. It means they are serious about securing a fair agreement that reflects the league's current reality. Among players, she is widely respected for balancing professionalism with firmness, and among fans, she is seen as someone trying to protect both the present and the future of the league.
And another one by the All-American. How about those two defensive stops?
Breanna Stewart, one of the league's most accomplished stars and a union vice president, has been more direct in expressing frustration. She has pointed out that players have spent years playing overseas in the offseason just to supplement their income, and that reality feels increasingly outdated in a league experiencing rapid growth.
You're gonna hold it from underneath the lens.
Hey, this is...
When someone with Stewart's resume speaks up, it carries weight, because she represents both elite performance and long-term investment in the league.
Caitlin Clark, Nafisa Collier, these two got the most fan votes. They will now have an opportunity to draft their teams from a pool of the All-Stars, which have yet to be named. We're still waiting.
Nafisa Collier has also spoke openly about the mood among players, describing a sense of urgency rather than anger. This is not about rebellion for attention. It is about recognition, sustainability, and respect for the work players put in year after year. And then there is Caitlin Clark, whose involvement in this conversation may be the most impactful of all, and the one who has become everyone's favorite in no time. Caitlin Clark is not delivering fiery speeches about labor rights. What she has done, however, is acknowledge publicly that the issues being negotiated matter, while also emphasizing that players want to play basketball. That balanced response might not sound dramatic, but coming from the most talked about player in women's basketball, it is incredibly significant, right? Clark represents the new wave of fans and the attention that has pushed the WNBA into a new era. When she recognizes the importance of these negotiations, it sends a message that this is not a fringe issue. It affects the entire league, from rookies to superstars. Fans, of course, are reacting in every possible way. Some fans worry that a strike would derail the league's momentum just as it is breaking into the mainstream. Others argue that this is exactly the moment when players should push for structural change, because leverage is strongest when attention is highest. And then there are fans who just want to know if their fantasy teams are safe and whether they should emotionally prepare for chaos. The truth sits somewhere in the middle, and we are not fully aware of it.
The WNBA and its players' union are in high-stakes talks over a new collective bargaining agreement. Players say the league's current offer doesn't fairly reflect their work or...
Strikes are risky, especially for a league that is still growing. Players lose pay, fans lose games, and sponsors get nervous. No one involved is taking this lightly. But from the players' perspective, agreeing to a weak deal now could lock them into years of limited growth at the exact moment when the league's potential is highest. Even the most liked and most debated stars are connected to this moment in different ways. Aja Wilson, widely admired for her dominance and leadership, represents the level of excellence that drives the league's value. Angel Reese, often discussed for her personality as much as her play, represents the attention economy that brings new audiences into the sport. Love them or criticize them, these players are part of the reason the league has leverage right now. So, will there actually be a strike?
And then they just kind of go back and forth. But as of right now, the updates are that negotiations are still ongoing.
Yeah, players, as we said, they're pushing for bigger salaries and, more importantly...
There is no definitive answer yet. Authorizing a strike is a tool, not a guarantee. It is a signal that players are united and prepared to escalate if necessary. Negotiations are ongoing, and both sides understand the consequences of failure. A deal could still be reached without a work stoppage, but it will require compromise, creativity, and acknowledgement of how much the league has changed. What is undeniable is that this moment marks a turning point. For the first time, WNBA players are not just asking for progress, they are demanding a structure that reflects the league they are building in real time.